Steve Von Trump with Collider. I'm here at South by Southwest with everyone behind them that follow. Before we get started, the only reason we get to be here covering festivals like Sundance and TIFF and South by is expensive. I want to give a huge thank you to the Supper Suite for hosting us. Blue Moon, El Tesoro, and all the other awesome sponsors that let us be here covering the festival and help you guys promote the movie. So let me start by saying thank you so much for coming in, sincerely. I've seen the film now, and you guys all did such a fantastic job. And one of the things that I really appreciated is that it is not portraying these people that are super religious in like a negative light. It's just, this is what they believe, you know? And I'm sort of curious if you could talk a little bit about that aspect of the film.
Sure. That was one of our primary goals when we set out to tell this story, was to tell it as unbiased and as sympathetically as possible. Dan and I are not people of faith, and I think that that's why we were so deeply curious about exploring a religious community and people that practice, you know, a really radical tradition, is because we really wanted to understand people of faith and what that feels like, the certainty that they must have each time they lay their heads down on their pillow at night. They know the answers, and that's not something that, you know, Dan and I share. So we were deeply curious about sort of walking a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, and you know, movies are all about empathy. You know, in particular, I think it was really just that guided so many of our creative decisions. I think it's really easy to make fun of these folks, to not take them seriously, and we really wanted to. We wanted to take their lives seriously, their everyday lives, and the extraordinary stakes that they face in practicing their religion seriously. And so while you're following along with characters whose choices you yourself might not make, by the film's end, I think that you come to understand why they made those choices.
For the two of you guys, could you talk a little bit about what was it about the project or the script that said, I want to be a part of this? And if you don't mind talking, because so many people watching this will not have seen the movie yet, if you don't mind a little generic, but could you talk a little bit about the characters you play as well?
Yeah, my character is Augie, and you know, it takes place in a really very specific religious community, and it was something that I knew very, very little about, and was kind of shocked to find out how it wasn't like it happened in one place. It happened, you know, all over Appalachia, and it's still going on, and you know, many undisclosed places, but. It was just so fascinating to me. I'm like, I wanted to know more about these people, and I think that's why you approach any script, because you want to know more about people in general, and like he said, just having empathy for someone that you don't agree with, and you know, I don't agree with these people. I mean, my character is sort of an outlier in the community. He's a non-believer and sort of strayed from the church, and so he's struggling with his relationship with his family, you know, which he still feels very close to, and then his relationship with his community, which he feels not close to anymore. And yeah.
Well, I was really drawn to Mara and the kind of relationship she had with her very charismatic parent. And that was something that I found really interesting and that I can relate to. And I was also, I don't know, really struck by something poetic in the reckoning that they partake in with their faith. I think there's something that made sense to me in my bones that gave me the shivers about the idea of taking up a snake, being in a position of sort of surrender that I don't understand from a religious point of view, but I do in my own human way. You know, there's something that thrill-seeking that we do all our lives, and what is that? Trying to feel something, trying to feel alive, trying to understand who you are without bias. Is it even possible? I think there's something that these communities kind of are trying to get at, And I understand that.
One of the things is that for the film to work, you need your father and the patriarch, if you will, of the community to be charismatic and pull you in, and that's why having Walton is he's such a great actor. So if you don't mind, talk a little bit about what the reaction when he says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do your movie," because he can pull that performance off. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about working with him, I'm a big fan of his work.
Yeah, Walton is, he's the strength of our community that we set out to build. And we knew that whoever we cast as Lemuel, if we didn't believe him, then we wouldn't believe this world, this story. And so it was really important. And when thinking about who would embody this complicated father, this, charismatic preacher, this very loving man, Walton was just, there was no other choice in our minds. He has such an extraordinary empathy for the characters he plays, and he brought a pathos to the character that maybe even wasn't on the page, and in the wrong hands, we would have had a very different film. And we trusted Walton to explore Lemuel as a father, and we have a special film because of what he brought to the character. He was a joy to work with, truly.
And I'll say, I think, when you're a filmmaker and when you're a writer and director in particular, you spend so much time with the script, trying to get the words right, trying to imagine how actors will one day say these words. And then when you're on set for the very first time with an actor, and they open their mouth and they deliver their first line of dialogue. And I remember it was something that happened to me with truly each one of our cast members, where there was such a ball of nerves, of energy. And then I remember Walton's first scene was a very quiet scene, and just his first line was just the most simple line, and I just felt this flood of relief all throughout my body, where I was like, oh, we're going to be fine. And it was the same thing with Alice, it was the same thing with Thomas, with Kaitlyn, with Olivia, with Jim, just one by one. As soon as their first scene came up, I just relaxed, because I knew that we had these extraordinary talents bringing our story to life, and so it was just a joy to be able to work with them, and in so many ways, I think that their performances bring the emotional authenticity of our film.
I just want to say, Walton is just one of those actors that's really exciting to watch and be on set with, because there's some actors, I think Olivia's this way, where she turns it off and on, and she's pretty casual about it and very instinctual. But Walton is kind of the kind of actor that more stays in that place. And so when you would walk into that church, like, you were in Walton's room, and he made that very clear, not in a way that was, detrimental to any of our jobs, but in a way that, it fit the tone of the movie, and he kind of just set the atmosphere in the room, which really helped all the extras in those scenes as well. He has just, this infectious quality to him.
Walton is passionate, and he's always sincere in what he's trying to discover for the character, and quite humble in that. He was always trying to do better, and I think that's what keeps performers doing better, is when they keep trying, keep not taking what they've got for granted, and that was really nice to be around. And we were both, really on board and certain that these characters loved each other, and that it's the devastating nature of how love can be true and blind, and you can actually lose the person that you think you love to the feeling, and it still be real.
Yeah, but getting back to what I said at the very beginning, one of the things that I really appreciated was that you guys didn't turn it into the standard trope that Walton's character is some evil guy leading this evil church. These are people that really love each other and are supporting one another. It's just a religion or a way of life that I personally couldn't do.
Yeah, I think one of the guiding conflicts that each of our characters in the film faces is what happens when your loyalties to your family comes into conflict with your loyalty to your faith. And so none of these characters are villains. They're just making really hard choices between two loyalties that don't always overlap.
I'm always curious about the editing process because that's essentially the final rewrite. So I'm curious, how did things change in the editing room? And did you do any early friends and family screenings that impacted the finished film?
Boy, did it change.
Yes. What is the old adage that a story is told 3 times when it's written, when it's directed, when it's edited? And it's true. We discovered a new midpoint to our narrative in the editing room, and it's something that we decided to do in the 11th hour. It was a very radical choice, but we had a really significantly different pivot point in the center of the film, and in the script and what we shot. And looking at our film as a whole, even though the sequence was really exceptional and all of our crew, camera, stunts, our actors, like, they hit it out of the park, the scene in and of itself was too powerful. It was too jolting. And when an audience watched it, we realized they could not recover. And they could not re-enter the narrative and stay on the journey for the rest of the film because it was so striking. And so Dan and I, well, we're sitting there a day before picture lock, and Dan's like, Britt, I'm going to say something crazy. And he's like, we need to cut the midpoint. And he goes, you think I'm crazy? And I sat down, I took a deep breath, and I was like, we do. We need to cut the midpoint. And we all just sat there with our editor, Josh Lee, in like silence, weighing the gravity of a decision in such a late hour. But we were right to do that. And it really transformed the film. And it's something that I don't know why we didn't see it earlier, but in reshaping the central pivot point to the narrative and focusing it on Mara and not Mara and Garrett, which was the old one that we cut, it rooted us more in her journey, and it made for a more intimate and emotional arc. And I'm so happy we did that, but it was radical.
Well, especially with the day before picture lock.
Yes.
Well, the strange thing is when we cut it, we didn't have to touch any of the other scenes. We just sort of
It's just like
clip and it was gone.
It's just like
So we didn't have to do any tweaking. We just, threw it in the trash bin.
Yeah.
What is that like? How long was this sequence?
I would say it's probably 5 or 6 minutes. 5
So
or 6
what
minutes.
is it like calling up your cast and being like, hey, so you remember that great work you did?
I don't even think it's that different without it. I'm like, what?
Honestly, you don't even know what scene you guys are talking
I don't want to say
Wait,
it on
we don't-
camera.
Don't.
No,
Look into my eye.
Oh, I think I know. I think I know.
Yeah. Off camera, because I want to, everyone watching this won't have seen the movie, or very few people, so I don't want to reveal any specific stuff.
Yeah.
But off camera, I totally want to know.
Yeah, I will tell you.
Right. For the two of you guys, I'm always curious about like memorable moments from filming. Is there a day or two that you'll both like remember forever?
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know, just the whole thing.
I think so.
I was really excited to work with Olivia, and so anytime I got to be on set with her, and especially the scenes where we get to be very like tender and close to each other. She's just so open and such a generous actress, and made me so much better in every scene that we did together. And she's just like this crying machine where she just decides like, oh right, oh yes, this scene I'm supposed to be sad, okay, and then like just turn it on, and it's really amazing to watch and pretty inspiring. But she doesn't take herself seriously at all. She's like so funny. We're cracking up, the scenes later in the film, were not so nice. But we're together right there, and so shooting those scenes was actually a lot of fun. We bonded quite a bit. Sweet Olivia.
Yeah, I think the whole experience was so fun and weird and emblazoned forever for me on my memory. And it's so true. Working with Olivia was amazing. I think I will always remember the snake, honestly. Like, there's a scene, not to spoil it, but I think it's been, if it's going to be spoiled, it's been spoiled. There's this handling scene, and I felt, it's so unusual, because I guess a snake doesn't move like anything else moves. It's just pure muscle, so having that all over you is really fascinating experience, and it's very visceral, and I will never ever, I'll never forget that, for sure.
So everyone has been coming in. I've been talking, having everyone play something called Get to Know Your South by Southwest attendee. Promise there's some harmless questions. For the two of you, what TV show would you love to guest star on? And for the two of you, what TV show would you love to guest write and direct?
Entourage.
Twilight Zone.
Oh my god.
That's a good one.
That is a really good one.
For reals.
Yeah,
Seriously.
well,
Somebody get
possible.
me, please. I want it.
A tie between Killing Eve and
That's a good one.
The Handmaid's Tale.
That's a good one. Oh my god. I love TV, so this is so hard. Whew. I'm like a deer in headlights.
Jersey Shore.
Gosh, this is so hard. My So-Called Life.
Ooh, that's okay. Yep. Do you guys have a favorite sci-fi or fantasy film?
Yes.
Favorite
that's
sci-fi
hard,
or fantasy? Ooh, I love so many.
Yeah.
Should we all just say Arrival at the same time?
Arrival is phenomenal. Yeah, I love that.
Wow.
Look, Alien is so incredible.
I have to say The Never-Ending Story.
Oh.
Sorry, guys. I had to bring out the big guns.
Ooh,
There's been a lot of good stuff recently.
I need you to.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ex Machina.
Yes.
It's one of the best sci-fi movies I've seen in the several years.
So true.
Especially Oscar Isaac dancing.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
scene was one of the best in cinema ever.
Yeah,
It's so good.
it's a very popular GIF as well.
Yeah.
Let's jump into another one. Is there anything that you guys collect, or did you said Alien?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, like Sigourney, the acting in Alien was incredible. I think that was what just got me so hard when I was young. It's just the being able to really suspend people's disbelief, and the Sigourney Weaver, just like I never not think about her. I think about her all the time. I actually thought about her when we made this, because I felt like it was there's something about the isolation and the attempt to hold one shit together that I really made Ripley was in my brain a bit. Yeah.
One of the most iconic characters in cinema history, without a doubt. Is there anything that you guys collect?
Yes, I collect miniature vintage tea sets.
You don't.
I do.
You forgot that for a while?
I also have a 4-year-old daughter, so I can get away with it because they're like her tea sets.
I have known you for 8 years.
I go on dark eBay holes, and I'll show you a picture. They're in a little wooden house in my daughter's room. They're
In your daughter's room.
in Finn's room. You come over for some tea.
Actually,
Little bits of tea.
Tiny bit.
Oh my god. Like a thimble.
I just realized, like,
Good.
I don't mean to. I sort of pick up little random bits of stuff, and they end up in my bag. And I wish that there wasn't so much random little bits of whatever in my bag. But like, it's not intentional.
My last thing for you guys, I'm always curious how people got involved in the entertainment industry. Like, what did you see a performance as a kid and you're like, oh my god, I want to do that? Or did you see a movie or see a play, or like what sparked that thing that you can remember?
Well, I came out of my mom, who's a film director, and then what she was doing made so much sense to me from a young age. I just found, I don't know, there was something so exciting and yet kind of really normal actually about when you go on a set. Like, it's so much just like weather, like, is the light gonna fuck with us, is the rain gonna fuck with us, is it
When's
too
lunch?
much when's lunch? Like, and then it's so amazing to just see a crew stop and be silent while you do your weird acting and you try it's interesting because in life you're always trying to be normal or good, but in film you're trying to be real.
I think you could,
Which
I
is
honestly
so
think
weird.
you could rebuild civilization with a film crew. Like, it's literally like people. There's like someone from every profession. Like, there are carpenters, like builders, there's someone making food.
yeah.
There's like, it's like a little community. It's like self-sustaining, and it's really beautiful when it all comes together. What was the question?
Oh, what's like got you into this? Yeah.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
I've talked about this before, but the one performance I saw when I was like a young teen was Paul Dano in Little Miss Sunshine. And I just thought it was so cool what he could do with a mostly silent performance. And I was just like, I want to do something like I want to do something like that someday.
I would say I moved around a lot as a child. I went to, I think like 18 or 19 schools by the time I graduated high school. And being the sort of perpetual new kid, I think I became a storyteller. Explaining where I came from and why I was there. I think that started my sort of path in studying people, in worlds, and contextualizing and dramatizing. And so I think that that was always like shaping narratives and, inventing sometimes was when I knew I wanted to be a storyteller. I knew I wanted to be a writer. And I sort of discovered that I wanted to be a filmmaker and a director a little bit later. But I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller from a very young age.
I guess I have two answers. One is, I guess, probably Boys Don't Cry, which is a queer person, I think I saw it when I was very young, and my older sister rented it from Blockbuster, 2 years after it already come out, and snuck into the basement and watched it together, an R-rated movie. And for me as a young person coming of age and trying to figure out who I was, just seeing a queer person, a trans person on screen, for the very first time, I was like, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. And so that was an extraordinary experience. And then also the Lord of the Rings series, because they took me away in a way that no movie ever has since. And being able to transport audiences in a room together and share that experience, I think, is just the most magical thing in the world.
I love both those movies. Amazing choice.
On that note, I sincerely want to say congrats on the movie. I thought you all did such a great job. Congrats on being part of the festival and Sundance and all that stuff. And thank you so much for coming in the studio.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.